It's not just a Dodge Charger, it's the Dukes of Hazzard's Dodge Charger. Let's have a look at this. Cannot wait. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff. Have I been waiting to look at a model of this? God, I can't tell you how long. This is something I've been after for ages, so I'm really excited to have a look at this. We're going to do it together. It's still in its cellophane wrapper, but before we go any further, I want to say a massive thank you to my American brother, Sean at the Scale Model Car Guy channel, who's managed to get hold of this for me, and he was able to get hold of it in the States, ship it to me for less than I would pay for one of these in the UK. So a massive win. Thank you very, very much. You don't know how much this means to me, because I've been after one of these for years. In fact, I've wanted to build this Dodge Charger since the 80s when this was on air. I think it first aired in 1979 when I was 9 years old, and I absolutely loved it. You know, charging around in cars. It was the first time I'd ever heard country music. It was probably my first real experience of America and Americans as a kid. It was just really something and a half. It was a funny program, gave us lots of laughs, and yeah, absolutely brilliant program as I remember it. And now we're going to have a look at the model. So this is the MPC kit. It's 1:25 scale, and they brought out several of these, not just the Dodge Charger, but I think Cooter's pickup and the Sheriff's police car were also released. I think there was also a Daisy Duke model as well, I seem to recall. I can't remember what the vehicle was. I'm sure someone will put it in the comments. But as we look at the box, we've got an image of the car. I seem to remember it had the Confederate flag on. I know that's a bit controversial, which is perhaps why it's not on the box art, but I think it had that on the program. I might be wrong. But obviously General Lee is a reference to the Confederate general. Yeah, we've got some images on there. The main two stars of the show. Got our kit number there, which is MPC 706L/12. A nice image here of the Charger on the side. Whether that's this model or the actual car, I am not sure. And then as we look at the bottom of the box, it's giving us an idea of our sprues, and indeed there is a decal there of the Confederate flag. So yeah, we've got our sprue trees, and looks like we've got some clear parts, some chrome parts, and the rest of it will be white plastic. Okay, I think that means it's a skill level 2 and recommended for age 10 and above, so I've got a fighting chance then. So the kit itself is a 2009 rebox of a 1967 kit. So the Dodge Charger kit itself came out before the release of the program. They did add new parts along the way for a little while, and finally released this version in 1979. Now, I'm not sure what year I have here. I've been looking around and I can't see anything on the box that particularly gives me a year of release. So I'm hoping that we might get something on the instructions or something printed or something like that, but I can't see a year on here. But they re-released this several times since 1979 in exactly the same box art. So this is as it was originally released in 1979. Right then, let's break the seal and have a look inside this box. You and me, we're the first people to look inside this box since it left the factory. And hey, this might be a 1979 one for all I know, though I doubt it is. It's more likely to be 2002 or something like that, I suspect. But hey, it's all the same inside, isn't it? And it's all about the build, not about what year it came out. I'm not a collector, I'm a builder. Okay. So that is the cellophane off. And when we open the box, let's just work out how that goes. It's quite a tight fitting box, but there we go. It's actually unusually the box lid has better protection than the actual box itself, which is quite flimsy. Right, let's get that to one side. What have we got? We've got our chromed parts in there. Wow. Oh yeah. Then we've got our main car. Ah, right, okay. We've got some red parts for the tail lights, clear parts, vinyl tyres and a metal shaft. And then our other parts in here. What else have we got? Round 2 models 2014. So there you go, that gives me an idea. This is a 2014 boxing, and it's basically a brochure of all the stuff they're selling, so we can recycle that. And then we have our instructions and a business reply thing. So this is a 2014 boxing, I'm guessing. Oh, and decals. Okay, that's interesting. Well, the decals look to be in good condition. That's the bonus of having a more modern release. It actually says copyright 2011 on the decals, so they may have changed it a little bit. But yeah, you've got the door decals, the roof decal, and the other roof decal, the Confederate flag. There's quite a significant decal film margin on them, but actually they don't feel too chunky, so there shouldn't be any difficulty. These are all pretty much going on flat surfaces, so you ain't going to have much in the way of issues. The danger is silvering because you've got huge acres of decal film between the 0 and the 1, so might be worth trying to cut them out and remove some of the decal film, maybe. Don't know. But they look like great decals anyway, so that's the decals bit done. Right then, let's look at our instructions. We have an A4-ish, no, I think it's a bit smaller than A4, but it's not A5, so a bespoke scale, single sheet that's folded, so it's really an A3 sheet, I think, that's folded. I'm not even sure it's A3, but anyway, it's a folded single sheet, which is double-sided printed, black and white only, so pretty basic all in all. We've got the image of the model telling you what it is at the top. This is my first MPC kit, so I've seen these. These are sort of quite familiar to me because I've seen lots of people building model cars, but I've never built one of their cars before, so this is another first for me. I might have done, I'm not sure it was MPC, but I did the ZZ Top car many years ago. Right, we've got some important instructions. So it's trim off any excess plastic or flash. So you don't usually get that as an instruction. That means you're going to get some without a shadow of doubt. What they're basically saying is clean up your parts. So all the usual stuff in here. We start step one. I mean, there is no key particularly. Oh yes, there is. I beg your pardon. There is. So step numbers in a black. Step number for chrome parts in black. Step number for non-chrome parts in white. Wow, how strange. Why would you differentiate between the finish of the parts? Maybe the sprue has the same part numbers on. That's very weird. Part numbers. What? Oh, so there's a step number for a chrome part, and then there's a step number for a non-chrome part, and then there's a part number separately. That is very confusing. Wow. If you've got a dotted line, it means you need to put glue on it. If you've got a solid line, don't put glue on it. It's going to tell you that it's a clear part by saying it's clear. It's going to tell you it's a red clear part by telling you it's a red clear part. Okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. You can tell I am new to building cars. Right. So step one starts with adding the wheel hub. Which I would have thought would probably be the last step that you're putting the wheels on last, but there you go. We're building that up as take it as a sub-assembly, and then it says between spokes only. What is between spokes only? I have no idea what they're going on about. And so it's a chrome part. Now, my understanding is the best thing you can do with the chrome parts, because when you come to take them off the sprue, you're removing some of the chrome anyway. So on some of these, it doesn't work, is to take the chrome off. And I've been told all sorts of things before, but I think the best way of getting the chrome off is to soak them in bleach. I have never done it. I have never removed the chrome from a part other than by scratching it off. So if you've got a nice non-hazardous way, don't be telling me to do it with brake fluid and stuff like that, because we won't be doing that. But if you've got a nice non-hazardous way of doing that in the kitchen, dechroming parts, I would like to know. So step two, we're putting a pin in to the back of the hub, which is going in the back of the wheel. I'm guessing that's so that the wheel can rotate. Step two, we're building up the engine block. So we can see we've got, it says repeat on the other side. So we've got two piston mounts there. It's obviously a V engine. Then we've got sump going on at the bottom and our manifolds going on at the sides. There is no mention of what colour to paint these particularly. So is there there's a paint shout out at the back, which I noticed the little square letters. So you can see there, little square letter, that is telling you the colour. So it is telling you the colours. It's just telling you the colour. It's not referencing a manufacturer's paint, which is perfectly fine. It's what we all grew up with, I guess. So black, aluminium, steel, white, flat black, orange, chrome silver, tan, semi-gloss, and gloss. And personally, I think matching the orange is going to be the most difficult thing. I have no idea the best paint for that to get the orange right. So again, if you're a car modeler and you've got an idea what the best orange would be to use on that, please let me know in the comments. I would love to know. Okay, then we're putting the front end of the block on. We've got our distributor cap there, so we can scratch build and put some leads on. We've got our fan and fan belts going on, so that's the engine done in the first part. Then as we open her up, step 3, we have our floor pan. We're adding a drive shaft and spring suspension. Okay, didn't know that. Rear spring suspension, so it's not massively sophisticated. Double exhausts going on. I don't know whether that's all moulded as one part. We'll have a look when we see the plastic. Tips only in G. Okay, right, yeah. And then we are adding the wheels on. There is some form of box, looks like a filter or something going in there. No idea what it is. And then that metal axle on the back, so it's free spinning. So the wheels should free spin at the back, and then jointly, and then independently at the front. Okay, but that looks like that is a single part, so there'll be a lot of cleanup on that, I guess. Step 4, and we're adding our radiator and bulkhead combined. Air filters going on, batteries going in, and the engine is going in. So step 5, we've got the interior tub. We're putting the dashboard part in separately, steering wheel separately, the center console with is that a gear shift? Is it? Oh, it's a stick gear. Okay. 2 front seats because the back seats are already molded in, and then we've got a roll cage going in. Yeah, okay, so the roll cage appears to be all being painted one colour, but we'll have a look at that because I reckon those thicker parts are probably some form of padding, so they'd be a different colour. Probably need to watch some old episodes and try and get a view. Step 6. We are then dealing with the main body, so it's a single piece moulding. We're going to paint it all up. We're then going to add the rear window, the windshield. Looks like there's probably no glazing for the side, even the angle light there, unless of course that piece wraps around. In which case I might want to modify that, trim those off and put some cellophane in, because that's going to look thick and chunky. We'll have a look. Fuel cap, radiator. There's another sort of radiator going behind the grille there. We've got some form of bull bar at the front, and then the rear bumper, little transparencies going in the back, and a chromed number plate that I think probably says Charger on it, so we might have to have a look at what that should be. And then as we flip over the page, we're on our final step, step 7, which is bonnet, engine bulkhead going onto the interior, and then that's all sitting down and clamping together. So pretty basic, low part count, basic instructions, but it should get you there, shouldn't it? Then there's our paint calls out, and then it shows us an image with the decals on, which is all you need. 5 decals in total. 1 on the roof, 1 on each side there, and then 1 on each side on the door. There you go. And then you've got yourself a Dodge Charger from the Dukes of Hazzard. Let's have a look at the parts. Right, looking at the parts, we're going to start with the tyres. So we've got vinyl tyres, and, you know, modelers are always a little bit divided on these, but I think it's quite a common approach amongst the model car industry to use vinyl tyres. And I have to say, these are some great looking tyres. I was expecting lots of seam flash. There is no cleanup to do on the tread of that. The tread looks great. There is no cleanup at all on these. You are just straight into using them, painting them maybe if you wish. We've got sidewall detail with sidewall writing, and it all looks really good. We've got the Goodyear logo on there, which we could maybe pick out in some white paint. Again, we'd have to have a look at how it originally was. I don't think it was picked out in white, but there's nothing you've got to do with that. So that is a really nice part. So happy with that. As vinyl tyres goes, they're pretty good. Right, the chrome parts now, and we've got one sprue of chrome parts. Came in a separate bag to stop them getting scratched, which is great. As we look at the parts, we've got this rear number plate that says Charger on it, so you've got the option of keeping it or looking at maybe getting a replacement. I don't know whether that's possible. That's perhaps more authentic to how it originally was. We've got some chromed engine parts here. We've got our wheel hubs, which obviously should be black, which I think that comment between the spokes was referring to painting it. So it all sort of works out when you start looking at it. We've got the grille there and the fuel cap and the rear bumper. Obviously, the problem with chrome parts is when you come to cut them away, the sprue gate nub leaves a non-chromed part, and on some parts you can get away with it. So we'll probably get away with it on the wheel hubs, but you won't get and possibly on the grille. But there is also some cleanup, and you can't clean it up and leave the rest of the chrome on, so you end up having to strip it. And I think that's quite a common approach in the car modelling community. What I don't know is best way of doing that. So like I say, any suggestions, I'm up for that. The wheels, I think these sort of squares at the back should be opened up. So I don't know whether it's just a case of putting some wash in and making them look like they're open, or whether we can drill them out. But my gut feeling is there is a lot of plastic to drill through, so that might end up not looking scale correct anyway. So yeah, but there's nothing wrong with those parts. They're nicely done. There's not a lot of flash on them. They're not not particularly any issues. This one has broken away from its sprue and it's rubbed, and you can see the chrome's come off, and the chrome does soften the detail a little bit, so it's worth dechroming them and then chrome foil or whatever you're going to do. Right, let's start looking at the multitude of plastic parts that we get in here, and we're starting with this particular sprue. We've got let's talk about the quality of the moulding to start with. The best way I can describe it is crude. It's reflecting its age. It's a 67 mould, but even for 67, it's a little crude. We've got a lot of flash, but that's possibly the age of the tooling as much as anything. We've got sink. We've got parts that aren't really square, so it's all a little bit crude. Let's take the steering wheel for example. The three spokes on the inside of the wheel there, each one of them is a different thickness, and as you look at them, I don't know if you can see that, that's off center, that bottom one. So I'm already thinking we're cutting those spokes out and putting new ones in. I can see why car modelers use a lot of aftermarket and upgrade, because some of this is fairly crude. Now we might be able to clean it up and correct it with filing it, but I think it'll be easier just to replace them maybe. So I'm not sure what part that is. These are the two bits that go behind the grill, but the grill is solid. So am I going to see them? No. So unless they're intrinsic to holding the construction together, possibly won't use them. Dashboard now, and you know, it's fairly detailed. It's also got a lot of flash on it, but we know that's going to be the case through this kit. So once we've cleaned up the part, because of the way this is molded as a single piece and this radius that we've got here, we'll lose definition on some of the panel lines. So we're going to have to do some rescribing, some cleanup. Some careful painting to pick out the radio equipment in there, and in the light you can just about see dials and stuff in there. There's no decals, so unless you can source decals, you're going to be painting those in. So there's an interesting challenge. The bonnet, it's nice, but it's a little bit lumpy, so you're going to have to do a little bit of fine sanding to get that perfectly smooth. It does have the bonnet tie downs in, which is nice to see. It's a gentle detail, so again a little bit of a wash, picking out the clips in silver if you can. Does have a lining, which is nice. We've got a couple of ejector pins that we'd have to sort if you're going to have the bonnet open, but you can paint the noise deadening material in, and that would look fairly cool, I think. Okay, next we have the front seats, the engine bulkhead, and this part that has the rear axle on and our twin exhausts. Again, it's fairly basic in terms of detail. We've got some fastener detail on here, but because they've moulded it one piece, the bit you're most likely to see, the side-on bit of the leaf springs, has got no detail whatsoever. So you're going to need to take a razor saw and just cut your spring divide lines in, just for a bit of added detail. You're not going to see much of this, so it's not too much of a worry. The other bit that you're going to see is the end of the exhausts, which are, well, they're elliptical, so I checked to see if that's correct, whether they should be round or elliptical, and they need opening up. But otherwise, bit of careful painting and a lot of cleanup, and that should be okay. Seats, again, they need a bit of a surface sand. This one is better than this one, but you can see it's a little bit lumpy. And you've got the seat belts molded in, but they disappear on the sides. There's nothing on the side. So a bit of research on Dodge Charger seats. It's a three-door car, so this back seat must move. So how does that move? Is there a disc there? Is there a little lever there, a trigger or something? So need to understand that. A bit of scratch building, I suspect, needed on the sides of the seats. And just understanding where these seatbelt harnesses go. You know, are they going into something in the center console? Are they attached to the seat? So there's a little bit of understanding needed on these seats. The firewall is very softly molded, so it depends on whether you're showing the engine off. To be honest, I'm going to want to see the sleek lines of it, so I'm not likely to have the engine on show, but it's an opening bonnet, so we will paint the engine up and what have you. So you could replace this wiring, maybe just scrape it away between its connection points, and that would add to the look of it and sharpen up the detail a little bit. But otherwise, it's not too bad. Bit of research, understand what colours these should be, and yeah. It's basic, but it's all there, isn't it? Next, little tree of parts. We've got some engine parts. This strange filter thing that goes underneath. Not quite sure what it is. We've got our dizzy there, and the wheel hubs. One of them has broken away. So these ones with the hole in. There's for your metal shaft. and these are for your front wheels, and then these are the pins for the front wheels. So once you've cleaned up the flash and you've got everything nice and crisp, this should paint up nicely. You've got radiator texturing on there. Not quite sure what that lump is, but I'm sure it's all pretty much engine parts. That our next sprue predominantly has got roll cage on it. Actually, if we could separate it into two, you can't really see these parts particularly well because of the way the tree has molded. But you've got the roll cage, which is a big chunky piece of plastic. So we just need to remove that, get the seams off, and away you go. Like I say, I'm not sure whether this has got cushioning around it and whether we've got a combination of the metal shaft and then some cushioning, so you don't know. So we need to have a look at that. But there's three parts there that make up the roll cage. And then if we look at these parts here, we've got our radiator, which has got a bit of sink in it. Wouldn't be a big job to fill that. We can clean that up, paint up the radiator, weather it a little bit, give it a wash. So if you did it in a dark grey and then gave it a black wash, that would really pop. And then this is the little overrider that goes on the front, which I think is black, isn't it? Yeah, once you've cleaned that up, that'll do the job nicely. Perhaps thin the sidewalls down a little bit, but yeah, that looks okay. And then on this one, we've got our engine blocks. It's a bit, I don't know where, is it a casting? But it looks like a cast block. So I don't know whether that's deliberate or not, but we've got writing on it. There's lots of detail on it. It's just a bit soft molded, but paints and washes and a bit of painting technique will bring the best out of that. Air filter, again, it's got the detail on there. It just needs a little bit of smartening up. Probably the timing belt wants replacing, maybe with a little bit of masking tape or something just to thin it down. Our fan is, well, that looks like it's short shot. So yeah, not sure what we could do about that. We'd have to think. It's a bit more of the roll cage there, and then our manifolds, and they look okay. They're using mounting pins to place the manifolds, so you might want to just take them off and do it by eye possibly. Sump's got some bolt detail, the plugs in, so all the main details are there. And then we've got a couple of parts that have broken off, so these two bits here and our battery, which is very soft molded, but you can just about see there's some detail on there. So yeah, as with the rest of the parts, soft molded, a lot of cleanup, fairly basic, but the basics are there. Clear parts now, and yeah, there is a fair amount of distortion in these. They are pretty basic. They're very clear. There's no imperfections in them, but because the way they're doing it and they're wrapping this is going to be the angle light. Because of the way they're doing it, that is forming a distortion in the two sides there, which is coming in because you've got a lip on the bottom, which they're using to install it. That's not actually on the windscreen. You've got a distortion there, and then it sort of rolls at the top. So you've got 4 distortions all coming into that screen, but it's only got one flood of plastic going in, so it's nice and clear. There's no spidering, and actually once it's in place, it won't look that bad. It just depends on what angle you're looking at it. I am very tempted to take that off because this is a thick, chunky bit of plastic. to take that off and do the skylights as acetate. There is no side windows at all. It's just front and rear. And the rear, even though it's fairly flat, it's better in the way of distortion, but there is a little bit on some of the edges, and it looks a bit rough. It feels smooth, but you can see inclusions on the inside. So all in all, not the best clear parts I've ever seen by quite a stretch. Let's have a look at the red ones. So these are our tail lights. Always nice to have a bit of red sprue. It's handy. Keep the sprue. It comes in for all sorts of things, lamps and all sorts of stuff. So quite a bit of cleanup on them. The shape is nice. There's a little bit of texture on the top. Just have to see how it fits. And then I think they're not very bright, so a good clear coat and a gloss up. But yeah, we need to get rid of the ejector pin marks on the back there because they're quite visible. But it does look a little bit like bulbs actually, so you might get away with it. So we'll have to see when we come to use them. Right, our main event now, which is the car body and the floor pan and our interior, which they all put together. Let's deal with... Oh my lord, I've just seen something frightening, but we'll come to that in a minute. So this is our sort of floor pan, single moulded. It's got quite a nice level of detail underneath. It's got, I think that's going to get hidden by the parts that go on there. It needs a bit of clean up, but you've got the detail, you've got the chassis and the floor plan all moulded into one piece, which includes the wheel linings and so on. So once you've cleaned that up, that should all look okay. You're not really going to see it anyway, so not too worried about that. I'm more worried about the fact that all the cleanup means that you're likely to get poor fit. When we look on the inside, there's some ejector pins that we'll probably need to file away so that the inside portion fits, but actually they're not in the way, so there you go. Got a couple of mounting points there, but you can see fit's not positive, is it? You have to make sure by eye that everything's lined up, but yeah, you can go into that. As we look at the inside tub, the rear seats are moulded in, quite crude, but they look okay, and they've got all the seams on and the cushions, so painted up they'll be all right. You've got a carpet texture, but you've got these huge ejector pins on the inside. I mean, sin of sins to do that. Ejector pins on the outside. What are they thinking? But yeah, it's the way they've made it. Rather than making separate parts that you build up, so it would have been easier to do it. They've moulded it all in as one. You've got all the detail on the sides there. I mean, all credit to them. There's a lot of detail in there, but it is very softly moulded, and it's just the basic way that they've gone around the tooling. So for me, probably going to replace the carpet is the simplest way of dealing with that. So fill that, a bit of masking tape over the top, and paint that up, and then you're good. Use the masking tape as a carpet. But yeah, it's not so bad. Once it's painted up, it's going to look fine, I'm sure. And then fairly smooth parcel shelf. It's a little bit scratched. That must have happened in the factory because it's been encased in the body all the time it's been in the box. But yeah, that's our interior done. And then the main event, which is our body. And the main thing I'm looking for here is that the smoothness and the detail. So they choose to mould everything in. So you've got the windscreen wipers moulded in. And they're a bit flashy, but that means they shouldn't be too difficult to paint. They're fairly well pronounced. You could always put a very thin strip of plastic card on the inside as rubbers. The grille is depicted well enough that it'll take a wash. Our body panel lines, they're all slightly different depths, so probably a razor saw around there just to even out the definition, because it's deeper at the bottom than it is at the sides. But it's all good. Our handles are already moulded in, so a bit of careful painting, or you might want to take them off with chisels, and because they're quite basic, put them back in, because there's nowhere to put your actual hand in. So you might want to chisel them off and replace them, maybe. And there's just a subtly moulded in the little lock there. Same on both sides. We've got this great big raised ring here, which is where the filler caps go in. I suspect that shouldn't be there, so I might sand that off. Don't know. We've got some sink here, which is a bit of a pity, but just along this edge, it's just the thickness of the plastic here. But it's where the lip goes up, so we may get away with it on the tailgate, which is quite rough at the back end there, but we won't there. We need to just fill that up. It feels smooth, but it doesn't look smooth, so I think it'll be several layers of primer and sanding and getting it where we want it. Yeah, some of these panel lines are pretty heavy, overly done maybe, even for a 60s car. Then on the back, the Dodge logo is so lightly moulded it all but disappears. Looks a little bit distorted at the back, but we'll probably get away with it. A bit of gentle sanding just to tidy it up. And then we've got mounting points for the bumper there, and inside we've got a print which says trademark Warner Brothers Entertainment 1969 Dodge Charger, copyright Chrysler, copyright 2009 Round 2 LLC, made in China, all rights reserved, manufacturing location Dongguan, Guangdong Province, China. Okay. So we know that this is probably 2009 model in a, whatever the date was, box. But yeah, it captures the Dodge Charger. It's got all the shape, appears to be right. You know, obviously we're not measuring things and double checking things. Needs a bit of clean up. There's some seam in places that's a bit rough. It needs work. Like all of the parts, it needs a bit of work. But to be honest, it'll be a lot of fun. And it's sort of roughly goes together-ish. So there you have it. The MPC Dukes of Hazzard General Lee Dodge Charger in 1 to 25 scale. What's my first impression? Crude. I said it right at the start, and it's what is the theme of this kit. It is fairly crude. Soft moulding, lots of flash, bits of distortion, detail missing, so you've not got those on, for example. They're completely missing. There's no wing mirror, for example, completely missing. Yeah, it's just a bit crude, rough around the edges. And unfortunately, I think the car modelling community suffers from that more than any other genre. You know, when it comes to aircraft, they're being retooled all the time. With cars, they're reboxing all the time. And it's a real shame because, okay, I get it. I get that a Dukes of Hazzard Dodge Charger perhaps isn't the best seller in the world anymore. The series hasn't been on air for, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years. So, you know, why would you be making a General Lee? So I get it from that point of view, but let's retool the Dodge Charger because it's, you know, it's a classic car that everyone loves. I just think it's a bit of a shame, really. Subject matter, 12 out of 10. You can't fault the subject matter. You know, lots of us grew up watching this and seeing it jumping off ramps and all the stunts and stuff. It was stuff of childhood dreams. Brilliant. Building a model of it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to, you know, and that's, in summary, what I think you've got here. You've got a box of fun. You've got basic modelling skills needed to build a basic model. But at the end of it, it'll be greater than the sum of its parts because it will be the General Lee. What can I tell you? You know, it's going to need some work. It's going to need a bit of skill to put it together. If you've never built a model before, don't attempt this. It'll put you off for life. But yeah, get it cleaned up. A little bit of patience with the painting, a little bit of patience with getting the surface of the bodywork right. And at the end of the day, the main thing you see when you're looking at a car is the bodywork, and that's the important bit. So you get those bits right, bit of detail painting, and this should look the business. So yeah, it's a lovely. It's going to end up being a lovely model. You're going to have to put some work in to get it there. Depends on whether you want to just build it for fun or whether you want to detail it up, super detail it up. You know, that you've got the basic bones. But yeah, as the kit itself, it's a bit crude. It's a bit rough around the edges. But the decals are good, so that's all going to help with your finish. Yeah, it's, you know, it is what it is. You know when you're buying it that you're buying an old kit. You now know it's a 60s kit, so it's a classic. It's a classic car. It's a classic TV show. It's a classic mould. It should be a classic build. Hope that was useful. Hope you enjoyed it because, you know, it's the Dukes of Hazzard. I'd love to play it out to the Dukes of Hazzard music, but the video would go down under copyright, so that ain't going to happen. But you can all start humming it. Good old boys. You take care, enjoy your modelling, and I'll see you very soon.